Hi everyone, my name is Kailee Atkinson. I am a senior at Lehigh University, and my project examines the relationships between COVID, climate denial, and gender. And my hypothesis, I seek to examine at the state level, populations who elect female governors are also more likely to understand or respect scientific results and thus respond behaviorally with precautions to avoid COVID-19. You can see here some of the just dual relationships between understanding of climate change and climate denial, as well as COVID per 100K, which I measured in early November, November 2nd, 2020 specifically, as well as its relationship with female leadership and the election of female governors. All of my graphs throughout my entire presentation and on my poster are organized sequentially with the states with the lowest COVID per capita on the left and increasing to the states with the highest COVID per capita on the right. And we can see some pretty strong correlations here, specifically with COVID per 100K in this middle graph. As a function of climate denial, we see that states that have the highest rates of COVID also tend to have a higher trend in climate denial, as well as this pretty interesting anti-correlation in my top left graph, where states with greater climate denial are have an anti-correlation in terms of whether they voted to reject female leadership in the 2016 election or to endorse it. Moving forward, I put this data on scatter plots and superimposed initially climate denial and then COVID per 100K and then female leadership as well. There's a pretty interesting anti-correlation. It's very slight, but we see down in the bottom right where states that have the highest amounts of COVID also tend to have the higher rates of climate denial and have also overall elected less female governors. And my data for the number of female governors includes all current and past female governors for each state. And this was also gathered before the 2020 presidential election. And lastly, I added the final red line here that we see, which pretty strongly correlates with the high rates of climate denial and COVID lines here. And this was for the 2016 presidential gender vote, where it incrementally increases by 1 for each state that voted to reject female leadership and remains horizontal for each state that embraced it. And we see pretty clearly that states that rejected female leadership also tend to have higher rates of COVID and also have higher percentages of climate denial and have also elected slightly less female leaders for each state. So lastly, this project was really interesting and really fun to do. I raised a couple of other questions just regarding, what drives people to vote. Is it gender or is it party? And, begging the question, is it really science or is it tribalism that compels people to vote for male or female leaders, as well as take part in behavioral actions to curb against crises like COVID and similar to climate change as well. Thank you for listening to my talk, and I look forward to speaking more about this.